Hey guys, welcome back to another video. I'm really excited to kind of go over this video a little bit. I'm really excited to film this video because I've been testing out a very cool VR headset that I'm sure you've probably already heard of. That is the PSVR 2. Now, I bought this with my own money, and obviously since I wouldn't be biased anyways, but this video is not sponsored and I paid for this with my own money, so let's get right into the review. Right off the bat, you're gonna notice a huge difference between the PSVR 1 and the PSVR 2. Even the Quest 2. I mean, this is just so much more aesthetically pleasing to my eyes than my Quest 2. And I know that might not seem important when you're playing VR, but if you're the type of person who has to have everything matching with their setup and just wants to look cool while playing VR, this is definitely the VR to do that. The Quest 2 is just all white and it just doesn't look that great. This looks like you mean business. I'm gonna be honest with you. If you had this on, I would honestly respect. Like, this is the most aesthetically pleasing VR headset I've ever seen, and like I said before, that's not really that important when you're in VR. But speaking of aesthetics, and what is important is the buttons on the headset. So this is the movement slider thingy-mabob. Don't really know what it's called, but this allows you to kind of adjust the distance between your eyes and the lenses. Great for people who wear glasses like me. We'll get to why I think wearing glasses is a bad idea while wearing this headset later on in the video. But if you need that extra space, you can adjust it between right here and just a little bit more, right? So it gives you a lot of space. You have 4 tracking cameras like every other inside-out tracking headset. You have 4. You have 2 on the bottom, 2 on the top. Although these are pointed more towards the sides than the bottom ones are. You have yourself the power button, which is right here. The microphone, which is a stereotype microphone, and you have yourself the Guardian button, which is kind of like the Quest 2 when you double tap. But instead of double tapping, you press this button and it just brings you out into the real world. Now, this is, I wouldn't say better, but I think it's more functional because there's been plenty of times where I've accidentally double tapped my headset, whether I'm putting it down or putting it back on, and it just puts me back into the Guardian system, and it gets kind of annoying. And this actually, well, I shouldn't say this because it's not the actual headset that does it. It's the PS5 that basically powers this thing, and it actually remembers the play spaces I've been to. I've been over there, I've been in this room, and it's not like the Quest 2 where it breaks every update and just forgets whatever play space I'm in. And I've even had it to where the Quest 2 just completely forgets the play space I'm in while I'm in that play space, which gets really annoying. Now let's talk about audio solution. Audio solution is only done by headphones and earbuds. I think you can use wireless Bluetooth headphones because the PS5 does support that. These come with earbuds that plug into the back here, or you just, like I said before, just use your headphones, whatever you use for your PlayStation 5 or PSVR 1. These sound really good. It is a wired headset. I know a lot of people were hoping for a wireless experience, but it is not. You have to have the PS5 and this cable connected to it at all times whenever you're playing VR. But as somebody who has a Quest 2 with Oculus Link and primarily uses their Quest 2 as a PC VR headset, wire for me isn't really that big of an issue. You know, I have it to where I have an extension which does support the PSVR 2, by the way, if you have an extended cord. Now let's talk about more of the facial interface and Headstrap. Okay, so the facial interface is like an accordion rubber style, which I really like because of the fact that it eliminates all the nose light. It also has a manual IPD adjuster, which is great for people who have want more than 3 settings on their Quest 2. Now, this does not have any manual volume rocker, which I don't know why it didn't come with one. But if you're in a game like Beat Saber or Synth Fighters where it's way too loud for your liking, then unfortunately you're gonna have to go into the settings and turn it down. Now let's talk about the Headstrap. The Headstrap is amazing. I've never had a more comfortable Headstrap in my entire VR career. I don't even know what you call this little hobby of mine of collecting VR headsets and making videos on it. I love how light it is, and that's due to the plastic, which can make it feel cheap, but it just makes it feel a lot lighter. I've heard a lot of complaints about people saying it's not as comfortable as the PSVR 1. It has actual motors that are activated in game. So like, let's say if you're playing a game like Pavlov, you get shot in the head. It's more of a rumble or thud depending on the gun, and at first it is pretty subtle depending on the game that you're playing, but it's once you get into a different game or a different headset that doesn't support this feature, it's something that you're gonna want to go back into just for the head strap and the rumble and the vibration and all that stuff. The lenses are Fresnel lenses, so they're a bit outdated, but the resolution is king compared to the Quest 2. I think it's around 2000 by 2040 per eye. Now the Quest is around 1820 or 1840 by 1920 or something like that, and the FOV is noticeable. That is fantastic. It's just so much wider on the PSVR 2. Now the lenses are outdated, but they're doable. The screens are really good. They go up to 120 Hz and 90 Hz natively, and the screens themselves are OLED. I have missed OLED so much. Now if you're connected to a PC, you can get the Quest 2 from 72 Hz all the way up to 120. Now that's depending on the PC and your specs. But the one thing I love about this headset is that it's just so easy to set up. It's plug and play. The Quest 2 or any PC VR headset, you have to worry about drivers and just making sure everything is up to date. Whereas this, you never have to worry about that since the PS5 does that automatically, and you never have to worry about your system crashing or games closing. It's just so easy to use, and sometimes it can be a bit confusing when you first get into the headset because there is no VR demo. There is nothing that jumps right out at you like, hey, play me, or hey, download whatever I have, or something like that. Like the Quest 2 has the first steps experience, which allows you to kind of get used to VR, whereas this, it just kind of like pops you in the main menu PS5 screen. One thing I want to talk about real quick is the guarding system. Coming from a Quest 2, right? It's really distorted, it's black, it's grainy, and now most of that is the same thing in the PSVR 2. The appreciation of not having such bad distortion for a guardian system, which I think is the most important safety feature on any headset. Worst case scenario, you knock something over, because you thought it was further away than it actually is. Like, it's really cool the way it does it. When you first get into a room, it scans it, and you have all these polygons going around the wall. It's a really cool thing to see, and the distortion is minimal. It's just really, it's a lot better than the Quest 2. It's still black and white though, and it's still grainy, but it just isn't as bad as the Oculus Quest 2. Now let's talk about the most innovative feature of this headset, which actually isn't even the VR headset itself. It's the controllers. These are the PSVR 2 Sense controllers. The best way I can describe these is like, picture yourself holding one of these, the PS5 controllers, and just splitting them into your left and right hand. And that's basically what you get with the PSVR 2 Sense controllers. You have the adaptive triggers, you have the black and white color scheme, and it's just really, really, really cool to have one of these. So for those of you who don't know what the adaptive triggers are, basically whatever game you're playing that supports adaptive triggers will have different kind of resistances. For instance, like if you're holding a MP5, it might feel different than a LMG or a P90, and everything just feels different when you shoot it. Or it's just a cool feature to have. Now the only gripe I have, well, one of the only gripes I have, is the fact that the buttons are a little too close to each other. So I often find myself pressing more than one button at the exact same time, and which is kind of annoying, but I have big hands, and so if you have smaller hands, this might not be a big of an issue. The other thing I want to talk about is the grip size. The grip button right here, right? It's more of a click than the Quest 2, where it is definitely more of a grab. I don't really know how to describe this, but you feel like you're actually grabbing something in VR with the Quest 2 controllers, whereas these, it just clicks and it just doesn't feel that great. Now let's talk about the software side of things, which is easily the best selling part of this VR headset. Now obviously you need a PS5 to run this. You can't have the standalone, which will in total cost you around $1,000, which is still cheaper than if you were to buy a PC and a Quest 2. To run a decent VR experience, you need at least $1,000 PC with the Quest 2, which is an additional $300-$400. So $1,400 compared to the $1,000 that you're gonna spend on a PSVR 2 with a PS5. If you have a PS5, this is only $500. I never have any issues with any games on the software side. Now, on the technical aspect of like reprojection and things like that, it's a bit of a different story, which we'll get to in a minute here. But the one thing I forgot to mention during this entire video, and arguably the best feature actually, is the built-in eye tracking, which is super cool in games like Synapse, where you use your eyes to detect what enemy you want to throw off a building or shoot or what have you. In games like Call of the Mountain, where it has you select the menu, is also pretty cool as well. But for most games, I think as of right now, they're using it for FR, which is foveated rendering, and now most of the time it's referred to as FFR. That just means fixed foveated rendering, which is what the Quest 2 has. Which basically means that since there's no eye tracking in the Quest 2, it's just whatever is in the center of the lenses is going to be the sharpest and clearest out of the entire VR headset, right? Whereas this, whatever you're looking, since the eye tracking is enabled, it will prioritize wherever you're looking as to be the sharpest and clearest out of the entire image, which is really cool. That also kind of makes it really easy to optimize games for the PS5. And that's another thing too we get to take in mind with the PSVR 2 and PC, is that there's thousands and thousands of different combinations for PC, like 2080s, 3090s, AMD, Intel, thousands and thousands of different combinations that every developer has to take into account. Whereas the PS5, it's the same system for everybody. It's just one and done, so there is no need to optimize for a 3090 and a 1660 Ti. You just have to optimize for the PS5 and that's it. Now, some games are graphically intense, like Resident Evil 8, or I think Gran Turismo, like Horizon Call of the Mountain, where they use reprojection, which basically means that they're faking a frame between two frames. So like, let's say if you have a frame right here and a frame right here, the fake frame would be just right dab in the middle, and that is kind of the simplest form of reprojection, at least to my knowledge. Now this also introduces something called ghosting, which I do notice in games like Call of the Mountain. After a while you get used to it, and it does make you feel a bit distorted, which is why this VR headset is kind of known for making people motion sick. It's not the VR headset itself, it's the games that use reprojection. But if you're in games like Call of the Mountain, you can definitely see just reprojection all over the place, and it's crazy. Overall, a great priced headset. It's my favorite VR headset I've ever owned. A couple things I forgot to mention in the video is the fact that you can't really use the inbuilt eye tracking in the PSVR 2 with glasses, because the space between your lenses and your glasses causes a reflection from the screens, obviously, and that makes it very hard to see your eyes inside the headset. And I recommend picking up some prescription lenses. I use something called Real Optics. They're great. I'm going to be getting some pretty soon for this headset, so stay tuned for that. Games like Pavlov will work fine with glasses, but if you're playing games like Synapse or Call of the Mountain, you can't really use the eye tracking that much. And another thing I forgot to mention, even though I had this all scripted and everything, is that the fact that this does not have these AA batteries. You have to have these always charged while you're playing VR. These last around 5 to 6 hours, but if you're going to play VR and they're dead, you can't really do anything about it. You have to let it charge for a couple of, maybe half an hour to an hour. I think it charges from 0 to 100% in about 2 hours. So about 2 hour charge time and about 5 to 6 hours of actual playtime, which is pretty good. I don't usually play for more than 2 hours anyways. Now this is obviously depending on your, if you're using the the adaptive triggers and the vibration and things like that, so that's going to be depending on if you're using those. And one more thing I want to go over is that the tracking is really great with the headset. I don't have any tracking issues, except if you have a harsh light directly on the headset. So for instance, I have this little light fixture, and I have all the lights pointing in different directions, because if I have them pointing straight down in my play space, the headset loses tracking quite often. And so this is going to be definitely just take into consideration how bright your overall play space is, If you're just being lit by sunlight or just have like lamps or something like that, you'll be fine. It tracks really great like in low light situations as well. I can just use my window light and it tracks perfectly fine. No tracking issues, and the occlusion is pretty good, better than the Quest 2 because of the ring placement, right? It's not in front like the Quest 2s are. It's more of the around the wrist, so it makes it a lot easier to aim down with sniper or something like that. I just wanted to add this really quickly, and yeah, let's get back to the video. The only reason why I'm not using it as much as I should or as I want to is because games that I have on PC aren't on PS5 yet, like Blade Sorcery. I think that's gonna be the end of the video. If you guys like the video, you don't have to do like, subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, virtual check yourself. Peace.